Well, let's write down the order that we did. Think about what we did. The first thing we did was to divide. And what we do, we divided the first into first. Once we divided, the second thing we did was to multiply. Then we subtracted. And then we brought down. Now once we brought it down, then we went back and we started the division process again, and we repeated it. Let me show you what I'm talking about with this one now. We divided the first into the first to get the 2x squared. So we divided, then we multiplied 2x squared times negative 2, 2x squared times x. Then we subtracted. The way you subtract is to add the opposite. Once I subtracted, I brought down. Now once we bring down, we go back and start dividing again. X into x squared is x. Then we multiply. Then we subtract. Then we bring down. Then we divide again. So you just keep repeating this sequence of steps. Now one good thing about long division is you can check yourself. Well, let's remember how we check this type problem. We'd multiply the quotient times the divisor and add the remainder. Well, let's try that. Let's multiply 24 times 52. 4 times 2 is 8, 2 times 2 is 4, 5 times 4 is 20, 5 times 2 is 10, 12, 8, 4, 2, 1. Now I add the remainder. The remainder is 43, 8 and 3 is 11, 4 and 4 is 8, 9, 2, 1, so I get 1291. 1291 was my dividend. You check long division of polynomials exactly the same way. I multiply my quotient, 2x squared plus x plus 4 times the divisor, x minus 2, and then I add the remainder, which is 7. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 2 times x is a negative 2x. Negative 2 times 2x squared is a negative 4x squared. X times a positive 4 is a positive 4x. X times x is a positive 1x squared. X times 2x squared is 2x cubed. Where I have 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 8. Now I need to add my remainder, which is 7. And I get 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, which is the dividend. So that proves that we divided it correctly. So with long division, you can always check yourself. Now let's do one in which I'm not trying to show you the similarity between the two types. Let's do one in which we simply concentrate on the polynomials and the sequence of doing the dividing. Let's divide x squared minus 5x plus 4 by x minus 1. Well, I rewrite it in long division format. Now to do the division, you divide the first into the first. The first step in the sequence is to divide. You're always dividing the first term of the divisor into the first term of the dividend. First term of the divisor into the first term of the dividend. So I'm going to do x squared divided by x. Well, x squared divided by x is x. Keep the base, subtract the exponents. So x is going to x squared, x times. Once I divide, I multiply. I multiply the x by all of the terms in the divisor. X times a negative 1 is a negative 1x. X times x is x squared. Once I multiply, I subtract. the way I subtract is by adding the opposite. So the opposite of x squared is a negative x squared. The opposite of negative 1x is a positive 1x. Now I add x squared and negative x squared gives 0. A negative 5 plus 1 gives negative 4. So a negative 5x plus 1x is a negative 4x. Once I subtract, I bring down. Once I bring down, I go back and start the sequence again, which means I'm back to dividing the first into the first. So it's a negative 4x divided by x, which will be a negative 4x to the 0, because 1 to divide powers having the same base, keep the base, subtract the exponents. 1 subtract 1 is 0. X to the 0 power is 1. Anything raised to 0 power is 1. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. So I get negative 4. Multiply. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. Negative 4 times x is a negative 4x. Add the opposite, plus and minus, and my remainder is 0. So the answer will be x minus 4. Let's look at this example. X cubed minus 3x squared plus 7x minus 1 divided by x minus 2. It's just like the last example, except that it's going to take longer because I have more terms. If I start the same way, x subtract 2 into x cubed minus 3x squared plus 7x minus 1. I divide the first into the first. So we're doing the x cubed divided by x. To divide powers having the same base, keep the base, subtract the exponents. So that would be x squared. That x squared goes above the x squared in the dividend. Once I divide, I multiply. X squared times negative 2 is a negative 2x squared. X squared times x is x cubed. Once we multiply, then we subtract. To subtract, I add the opposite, negative. This will be plus. X cubes will divide out, will cancel. A negative 3 plus 2 would be a negative 1, so I have a negative 1x squared. Once I subtract, I bring down. Now once I bring down, I start the sequence again, which is to divide the first into the first. So I have a negative 1x squared divided by x. A negative divided by positive is a negative. And to divide powers having the same base, keep the base, subtract the exponents. 2 subtract 1 is 1, so I get x to the first. Now I multiply. The opposite of x times the opposite of 2 is a positive 2x. The opposite of x times x is the opposite of x squared, or negative, same as a negative 1x times x would be a negative 1x squared. Once I multiply, I subtract. So this would be plus, this is minus. X squares will cancel, 7, that will leave me with 5x. Once I subtract, I bring down. Now I divide, first into the first. 5x divided by x, which is 5x to 0, which is 5. So put the plus 5. 5 times the negative 2 is a negative 10. 5 times x is 5x. Now I'll subtract. By taking the opposite, the 5x's will cancel. Negative 1 plus 10 is 9. So I write my remainder now as 9 over x minus 2. So it'll be plus 9 over x minus 2. Be sure to put in the plus, then it's the remainder over the divisor. So notice you just do the sequence over and over again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. 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 Just keep doing the sequence over until you have something that is of smaller degree than the first term in your divisor.